Good afternoon, everybody, and today, by request, I'll be doing a hopefully short video of how to aim in Warthunder Naval, since the game doesn't do an amazing job of explaining all aspects of it, and it can be a little frustrating at first if you're coming over from another game or starting fresh out of the box, first naval experience whatsoever. I'm going to start with a couple important settings that you may want to tweak just for your own enjoyment. And then I'm going to move into the UI associated with aiming. And finally, I'll do a couple of examples on how to adjust your aim and where to actually lead your targets per if they're approaching or falling away from you. So without further ado, let's get into the settings of the game. The first of those settings, you're going to want to go into controls. And on the search bar, you're going to want to type in distance. Now, this distance correction, a lot of players will say to assign to your scroll wheel so you can adjust how close or far your ship is aiming versus the range the enemy target's at. Personally, I don't mind actually moving my mouse up and down. There is times where it gets a little egregious, but I wanted to keep it in there as an option for you if you're frustrated with using your mouse. For the second of these settings, we'll want to back out of this. You'll want to go to Options, and you're going to want to type in Targeting. And the trick to this one is to turn off this automatic target lock at the bottom. This will bother you if you're trying to use the aim assist marker that I'll show you a little bit later to line up your shots in the game. Because every time you hover over a different ship, whether it's the target that you're aiming at passed in front of it, or the game just decided to randomly switch your target on you because another ship was closer, it will reset the timer to correct for your aiming. So you'll want to turn this off. Usually, I believe the default key binding to actually select your targets is X. So you'll have to get used to using that to pick your targets when you want to actually select which one you're going to fire at. So we'll resume this and we'll get into how you actually use the UI to aim. So as you can see, you have a pretty normal crosshair. Oh, that's not the button I wanted. This one. Off to the sides, you have your lead indicators. That'll help you a little bit on judging your distance that you want to aim ahead or behind the target if you don't have the assist icon up yet, or if they've made a change in direction or speed. In the middle, you can see this little green circle with a line coming out of it. The game calls this your anticipated fall of shot. So as you can see, it doesn't always stay right with the cursor. That's because your guns are still lining up. If you don't wait for your guns to line up fully, or you don't correct for the fact that they're not lined up fully, your shots aren't going to land exactly where the center of your crosshair is. So that little bit of lag time in that, which this ship has rather fast turning turrets, so it takes me a while to get it to actually not catch up to my cursor, I guess you would say. So it's hard to give an example with this one without moving it really fast. Just below it, you see a number ticking all over the place. That's the actual distance your guns are aiming for. It is completely irrelevant to what your target distance is, what the aiming circle is telling you to do, and everything else. This is exactly where your cursor is on the map. So you can put it close to you, you can put it far, you can put it where you think the enemy ship is without targeting it, and you can see the fall of shot indicator pops up on top of targets if you're just kind of roughing them in without selecting a target. Now, if we do select a target, say this ship right here, you can see off to the side over here, there's a measuring range indicator. This is for your lead indicator. It takes a certain amount of time for the game to give you an indicator as to where you should aim your guns. And as you can see, it has popped up. Since my ship is stopped and the enemy ship is stopped, it is dead center on that ship, and I can go ahead and aim for that. And if I shot right there, my shots would most likely hit the enemy ship. But as you can see, where my guns are aiming per distance and where the enemy ship actually isn't quite the same. That circle, even if you're trying to aim as close as you can to the dead center of it, isn't always exactly right. So I wouldn't trust it as per distance, close or far. I would judge it per distance as your speed versus their speed. So say if they're going faster than you, it's going to be over here, and you can use it for that, and then adjust if they're moving closer to you or going further away with that indicator below your crosshair. Don't just shoot for this circle, it's going to lie to you. Use it as a horizontal reference, not a vertical, I guess would be the quick way to put it. Now, as you can see, there's an inner circle on that one that is slowly filling up, resetting, and filling up again. That is basically the re-aim timer for that. So if that enemy ship makes a movement in the time that you are aiming at it, when that circle ticks back around, it will adjust your point of aim. It won't adjust before that, but once it does, it'll take a snapshot of your speed versus the enemy speed and give you a new point of aim. The other thing that I'd like to throw in here before we move on to how to actually aim at ships and where to put your shots is, like I said before, if you switch targets to say this destroyer over here, you have to remeasure your aim. Even if you just switch immediately back to this light cruiser, it's going to remeasure. So I'm going to put my ship into reverse so it'll actually change where that circle is on the enemy ship. And as my ship speeds up, which it'll look like I'm leading this target, which I am because I'm going backwards and they're stationary. When this circle in the center comes back around and re-aims, it'll move that circle to show that our speeds have changed. And it's not a lot, but if they made a sharp turn, or if I made a sharp turn, it is going to be significantly different. So, practical aiming abilities. I'm going to see if I can get my ship to go forward, and I'm actually going to start moving towards these. When you're both stationary, which isn't often, most times you can kind of roughly take the same range as the enemy ship on your aiming indicator. Sorry, I popped out there. So that ship's at 6.7. I can take 6.7, and if I shoot at that, it's going to hit relatively close, if not right on top of them. Force a habit for me to flick out of that. So I did some decent damage, but they hit high. And for high explosive, that would be okay. As you can see, it did a ton of damage to stuff on deck. There's a fire. But for ships like that, you want to get a little bit under. You want to shoot through the water, hit under the ship, get them to start sinking, hit those critical components. And now I'm also moving slightly towards it at a pretty brisk pace. You can see their distance is ticking down rather quickly. So something easy to do is take, 0.2 maybe, off of whatever their range is, and as long as you hold your cursor still, the game will keep it about right there. Even as you move closer, it'll just keep adjusting your aim. And take 0.2 and just fire. See where that lands you as per where you want to put your shots. Now, as you can see up in the upper right hand corner, I hit the boiler room and a lot of the components inside the lower portions of the ship. That's also causing flooding. As you can see, it caused fires, and that's just going to create hell for your opponents. So if you're moving towards somebody, you basically want to lead into them slightly. And you can start with that rough estimate of 0.2 depending on what range you're at and how fast they're closing on you or you're closing on them. And then you can adjust per, well, I only hit the smokestacks, or I hit really high on the conning tower. Well, I only hit their gun. So you can adjust based on that and say, well, I need to go a little bit closer with my aim, or I need to go a little bit further because all my shells went in the water instead of going onto the ship. On the flip side of that, say, I want to hit a little bit further because I know further up, I should say, on the ship, because I know I took out the boilers in that area. So change your position horizontally, let loose your shot, and I didn't really move my cursor too much, so it was about the same aiming distance, But as you can see, it hit a completely different part of the ship because of your horizontal aiming have changed. However you want to say that. English is hard for me today, I guess. Primary language and all, you know. So really, that's the simple way to do it. Obviously, the easiest way to round out how you want to aim is based on what kind of shot you're using. If you're using high explosive, you're going to want to aim to where all your shells are landing on the deck, unless it's actually a light armored ship like a destroyer, and you have enough explosive mass that it's damaging interior components. Obviously, your high explosives aren't going to penetrate through the water, get into the bowels of the ship that way, so you're going to have to aim a little bit higher up to actually deal your damage. But if you're using armor piercing, you can lead the ship a little bit more than you would with high explosive. You can try to go through the armor belts on some of the earlier ships. You can try to get your shells into the water and into the bottom of that ship's hull to where you're damaging the motors, you're damaging the ammo storage, you're potentially detonating the ammo storage. And that's where you're going to get a lot of your rewards for, massive damage, really. So it all depends on conditions. Are they approaching you? Are they moving away? Are you both stationary? Are you moving faster than them? The TLDR of it is your speed will be the green indicator that pops up on your screen and resets every so often. That'll help you get used to the distance you need to lead targets per what you think all the speeds should be on your ship versus their ship. Your distance will be the enemy's ships, and it's hard to see here because he's behind an island, the red emblem on the enemy ship telling you its distance. Thank you, Warthunder, for making that disappear. I'll just go to this destroyer. So the red indicator saying their true distance at the time. And if you want to think about it, that black indicator is where your shots are actually going to land. So wherever you put that black indicator is where your shots will land 5, 10, 15 seconds later, and you're adjusting for where that enemy ship is going to be. Rather than just adjusting horizontally, you're adjusting per how close he's going to be to you and anticipating where his components are going to be. It's a long-winded way of saying shoot for where the ship's going to be, not for where it is at the moment. Other than that, pick where you're hitting for ammo types, keep an eye on the upper right-hand corner for where your damage is actually landing, what components you're actually damaging, and adjust your fire accordingly to range in either what parts of the ship you want to be hitting, or if you're getting good enough, what components you actually want to be hitting. Maybe that ship's being a little annoying with its guns and you want to wipe them off the deck for a little while. It's all up to you. Hopefully this helps. If I didn't cover anything that you think might be useful, feel free to let me know. I'll probably do a couple more of these in the future, going over, say, damage control, torpedo aiming, that kind of stuff. But if you like it, let me know, and I'll see you next time.